up, guys? Silver Cranberry here, and I guess this is my first video, so let's get into it, shall we? Whew. I breathed into my hands. It was cold. Damn, it's cold out here. The sun had set, and it was so cold I had a hard time believing that school was starting soon. Of course, the state of my wallet was probably affecting my perception of the weather. Of course. As was my lack of a place to go. Whew. This time I sighed. The full moon hung heavily over me. My name is Okanagi Messiah, and the cold I felt ran deep. My story started the day before. I'm tired. As usual, I returned to my apartment after work. Even though I was home, there was nothing fun to do there but stare at my father's face. That's creepy. I was back in my hometown for the first time in a year. I thought about rounding up my friends for karaoke, but I don't think I could see them now. Besides, I was broke. The apartment we were in now didn't require a finder's fee or security deposit, but we had to pay the first 3 months' rent in advance. That had wiped out what little savings I had. But running away with nothing but the clothes on our backs definitely saved a lot on moving expenses. However, no matter how much you save, it costs money to start a new life. Yeah, it does. I had always been poor, but now I was on the verge of being penniless. I've only just started my job, and I don't get paid until the 20th of next month. Damn, that sucks. What was I going to do until then? My anxious thoughts swirled around in my head, but I forced myself to stop. It was pointless to focus on the negative. Fine, I'll go to sleep. Possibly due to my numerous part-time jobs, I hadn't had any time to sleep lately. Even though one of my redeeming features had always been taking care of myself enough to not get sick. I mounted the old, rusted stairs that felt like they would give way with every step. My old man and I were holed up in a room on the second floor. I'm home! I guess he's not here. Those mob guys must have been back. Dad spent most of his time lazing around the house or fleeing from loan sharks. What a deadbeat. Of course, I told him, get a job, a number of times. When I did, he'd give me this strange little smile and say, he sounds like a loser to me. He was really hopeless. I turned on the light. There was a scrap of paper and an envelope on the table. I checked the paper first. It was my old man's handwriting, written on dollar store memo paper. Of course. I let out a sigh, then threw the note in the trash can. I put my hand to my chest. Compared to the sadness I experienced when my mother left, all I could feel now was relief. I glanced around the room and noticed what few belongings my dad had were gone now. My old man really had left me. In any case, he had never contributed to our living expenses. Him being gone wasn't an issue. In fact, it might make things easier. What's this envelope? A farewell gift, huh? But I don't think he's got any money. And if he did, he wouldn't give it to me. There were 2 sheets of paper inside the envelope. As I expected, it wasn't a farewell gift at all. There was something written on them. I wondered why he'd kept this separate from the memo, though. We owe? I'm pretty sure those debts are all yours.
この機会にマサヤ君に一本化しておきました。
Oh shit. Huh?
同封した紙は例の極悪組への証文です。マサヤ君が寝ている間に母印を押しておきました。てへ。
Wow, what a terrible father.
マサヤ君、よく寝ていたな。きっとバイトの疲れが溜まっているんでしょうね。バイトなんかはそこそこにして体には気をつけるんだぞ。お前の父さんより。
The next thing I knew, I had crumpled up the paper in my hand. I looked down at my thumb. So that's where the red stain had come from. That old bastard! 1 year ago, we left the town I had lived in all my life. Tsurugigaoka. Okay. Our family life had been falling apart for as long as I could remember, all because my father was a deadbeat. My mother had given up on him long ago, but didn't want to leave him until I reached a certain point in my life. Then, on the evening of my 10th birthday, she brought me to a park and said,
母さんね、お前が10歳になるまでは待とうと思っていたの。
For what?
離婚を。離婚の意味はわかるわね。
Yes?
10歳になればある程度の分別も身につくわ。母さん、マサヤには父さんと別れることも仕方のないことだと分かってほしかったの。こんなのは親の勝手な言い草に過ぎないんでしょうけれど。
I shook my head. Even as a child, I understood that my parents couldn't stay together anymore.
そう。ありがとう。マサヤは優しいわね。
In the cold light of the street lamps, it seemed she was smiling for the first time.
じゃあマサヤ、友達とお別れする時間もなくて申し訳ないけれど、早速家を出るわよ。
Right now?
ええ。父さんと話し合いなんかしたらきっと引き止められるに決まっている。そしてあの人のペースに巻き込まれてしまう。口のうまさに関しては天才的なんだから。母さんね、もう話し合いもしたくないの。離婚届に判をついて置いておくわ。行き先ももちろん知らせない。マサヤが大人になった時はたまには顔を合わせるのもいいでしょう。けれど。
Oh, shoot. Hello.
さあ、行きましょう。荷物は少しずつまとめてあったの。あの人が帰らないうちに出ていくわよ。
I'm not going.
え？
My mother's eyes opened wide as she looked at me. To her, it was as if her son had started speaking an alien language. In my childish way, I explained to her that I felt like I couldn't just abandon my father. Mom would be fine on her own, but Dad wouldn't. That was the conclusion I had reached, which was why I couldn't go along with my mother. Mother was upset, and in the end decided to cancel that day's flight. She spent some time trying to convince me, but in the end, she was the one who gave up.
わかったわ。
She left the house alone, promising to stay in contact with me. I could still clearly see the image of my mother walking off into the rainy night. That sounds kind of cliche. In the end, my mom was right. I looked down at the crumpled paper in my hand. Now that I knew how the world worked, I realized Dad would have turned out this way whether I had been here or not. But what am I going to do about this? My thumbprint was on the loan. The interest rate was 30% every 10 days. Wow, 30%. A paper like this had no legal merit, but I doubted the logic was going to appease those two. My father's one redeeming feature was what my mother once called his genius way of talking around people. He managed to hold off even the most fearsome of loan sharks with the most laid-back manner possible. Until last year, we had somehow managed to keep up, but then the debts got too big, and my old man broke under the pressure. And that's when he ran away. Damn, I should have just stayed in Tsurugigaoka. Back then, a part of me still felt sorry for him. I'd also just graduated from my old school. That sense of finality might have had some influence on my actions. I graduated, then fled to some unfamiliar land and enrolled in school there. I had started to think that the loan sharks had given up and we'd made a clean break, when suddenly a local mafia came calling. How badly in debt did you get? I screamed at him, but my father just gave me that little smile and shook his head.
どうやら債権が渡ったようなんだよ。
My father's skill as a hustler had just made the situation even worse. Unable to get around his skilled way with words, the creditors had sold his loan to the mafia, and the force they used to collect our debt was on a completely different scale. My dad wheeled and dealed, but in the end, he only brought us a year. And now, we had once again returned to Tsurugi Gaoka.
やっぱり生まれ故郷が一番だもんね。
I was mad about the short notice as usual, but I couldn't say I wasn't glad to be going back home. I had just finished my first year at school, so it was a good time to transfer. The problem was that since he never earned any money, the loan wasn't going to just disappear. This time, I didn't even have a chance to catch my breath. A new creditor would come calling soon. That was the Goons. The Goonies? Their efforts to collect were much more violent. I had known we couldn't keep up this life much longer, but still, I never thought it would end like this. I was finally ready to abandon my old man. In my heart, he was no longer my father. From now on, I would just call him the bastard. But even so, what was I going to do? In the past, if a loan shark or a mob guy approached me, I could point them at the bastard, and that would be that. On a few occasions, they'd gone after me. I could admit that the bastard had still helped me out, but now that he was gone, I had to deal with it on my own this time. Me, an average student, unlike him, I knew I couldn't talk my way out of it like he could. What do I do? I sunk down onto the worn-out tatami mat. I had to run away, but to where? I'd already spent all of my money on rent. Ugh. I felt like all of my strength was leaving my body. Oh shit! Just then, there was a rapid knocking on the door. I felt my limp body tense up instantly. Whoa! I thought I could pretend I wasn't home, but the door was so thin they could probably easily break it down. Each kick caused the door to rattle. It really did. It really did look like it was about to break inward. I quickly moved to the back of the room, opened the closet door, and squeezed inside. Closing the door didn't block out much sound, but it cut off most of the light and left me in the dark. I couldn't ride this out by hiding in the closet. I stood up, leaned forward, and located the ceiling board above me. I lifted it up and set it aside. Ugh. Restraining the urge to cough from the dust, I pulled myself up above the ceiling. I heard the sound of the door breaking down just as I got the board back into place. There was a crawl space in the ceiling, and despite it being a tight fit, I managed to make it through. From there, I made it outside, climbed down the rain gutter, and ran off at full speed.
親父、どうもイルスじゃなかったみたいですね。
I don't really care.
押し入れにもいねえや。あのガキ、 っかで遊んでいやがるのか？
おう、見ろ、清。
え？
あの野郎の書き置きが残ってる。
書き置き？
あの野郎ももうおしめえだな。借金の方にてめえのガキを売る。あいつが売ったのはガキだけじゃねえ。てめえの魂まで売っちまったんだ。
He really does sound like a bastard.
そうっすね。
That was yesterday. I had spent almost a full day just wandering around the city. I skipped work today just in case. I didn't want to make trouble for them. Calling an absent right after I start. If this continued, I'd be fired after 3 days. If I didn't get my first month's pay, all the work I had done would have been for nothing. I was starting to miss that rundown apartment. At least it had a ceiling and a floor. I didn't want to sleep on the street. I was tired to begin with. I napped on the park bench for a while, but now I was just exhausted. Well, I'll end up dying in the streets at this rate. The fact that I was joking showed just how grave my situation was. Oh, the fact that I wasn't joking. My bad. I checked the contents of my wallet. Again. 100 yen coins. 1. 10 yen coins. 6. That was all. I had no paper bills, nothing of use. I thought about running out to an automatic loan machine, but I knew better than anyone that once you started borrowing money, you'd never stop. I wasn't sure if they'd lend money to a student anyway. That's right. What will I do about school? How was I supposed to get any learning done in a situation like this? Due to my unique situation, the school agreed to defer my tuition payment, but there was no way I could pay it with the goons after me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how badly I was trapped. I hung my head in the middle of the street. Somewhere inside me, I knew there was no way out. Although the hunger, cold, and exhaustion made it hard to get my thoughts together, people passed by, shooting me concealed glances. But I looked straight ahead and watched them walk by with lonely thoughts in my heart. Those people all had homes to return to, warm houses with families waiting. I didn't have anything. Realization that I was all alone in the world suddenly pierced my mind like an arrow. It wasn't like I wanted to live with that freeloading father of mine. But even so, the sudden realization caused my vision to blur. Damn, is he crying? I rubbed my eyes. I wasn't alone. My mother was still out there. My mother had kept in contact with me all this time, but I never tried to see her. She had started a new life in a new place. Perhaps now was the time to impose on family. I heard the sound of footsteps passing by, some moving ahead and some moving behind me. Until yesterday, I'd always had some place to go, some place to come home to. It was all that bastard's fault. Damn. If I ever saw him again, I was going to hit him. The fuck was that? It occurred to me that I hadn't eaten anything since dinner the night before, one anpan and a can of milk. I should eat something. If I ate something, it might put me in a more positive mood. Though I wasn't sure what I could do to satisfy my stomach with 160 yen. I saw the lights of a convenience store on the corner up ahead and walked toward it. Just then a figure appeared near my feet. Kitty cat! A scrawny cat with matted fur stared up at me. Normally I wouldn't give a thought to a stray cat, but... What's wrong? You're all alone too, huh? I was so lonely, I found myself talking to it. What's wrong with talking to cats? The stray kept its distance, but looked at me with a surprisingly affectionate meow. Yeah, I'm hungry too. I got a fish sausage, which seemed like the most filling option for my money. That sounds disgusting. I thought the cat would have run off and I'd eat on my own, but when I came back, it was sitting right where I left it. I guess I don't have much of a choice. When I removed the packaging, the cat smelled it and walked right up to me. I broke it in half, stuffed one piece in my mouth, and offered the other to the cat. The cat quickly devoured it, then looked up hungrily at my mouth. Sorry, it's all gone. Munch, munch. Hmm? When a gust of wind sent a newspaper flying, I suddenly remembered the lottery ticket I bought earlier. More precisely, the lottery ticket that the bastard had made me buy. I didn't want to waste our money, but he was so adamant on getting rich quick, he ended up forcing it on me. Now where did I put it? Did I lose it somewhere? I searched around in my pants pocket and found the warm one-out ticket. The announcement should be today, and the newspaper probably had those results. I picked it up and walked over to one of the street lamps. Just then, an unpleasant sight hit my eyes. What's going on? Rape? It was too far away to hear what they were saying, but it was clearly an argument of some kind. The people passing by seemed too afraid to get involved and just sped up as they passed. Yeah, help her. What are you doing? The whole group turned my way. Just then, the girl escaped their grasp and ran toward me. I turned boldly toward her blue-suited attackers and hid the girl behind my back. One of them advanced on me, acting as group representative. He's got an awfully high-pitched voice. It doesn't matter who I am. What are you doing? Just by saying please, the glint in his eyes and quickly imposing presence told me that these people could give the goons a run for their money. Just who are these people? Their stances left no openings. Who was this girl? Why were these people after her? I glanced back and found her glaring at the blue-suited figures from over my shoulder. Huh? Right. Aw, shoot. I couldn't walk away now. Pushing the girl with my body, I gradually began to draw back. The blue-suited figure didn't miss the gesture. Without a sound, he closed the distance and reached for me. He's fast! Moved so smoothly, he clearly wasn't your standard ruffian. His hand slipped past me, reaching for the girl's arm instead. He didn't seem to want to use violence, but I reflexively struck with my hand. I know that sound. It met with a surprisingly pillowy softness. Huh? Sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't even get out my apology before my opponent slipped into a stance. This time her fist was aimed directly at my face. I quickly dropped down, the punch just barely missed me, and I could feel the tearing through the air above my head. It was a total coincidence that the punch missed me, but the woman seemed to be in shock. The other three, who had previously been watching, began stalking towards us. They seemed to radiate anger from every pore. This isn't good. My presence seemed to have escalated the situation into a new level of hostility. I'm sorry, I held up my hands apologetically, but it was clear that the situation was far beyond saving. One of the suits rushed forward. I tensed up, determined to protect the girl behind me. I barely had any strength from the start. I was prepared for what was coming, and yet, the blue-suited figure had just about reached me when she suddenly tripped and lost her balance. Kitty cat to the rescue! It was the cat from before, paying the debt he owed me? Thanks to the cat, the suit went tumbling. Her friends quickly moved to help her up. I felt a tug on my right hand and turned back around. We're right. Footsteps rang off into the night. We started running, zigzagging down the streets until the footsteps of our pursuers died down behind us. Maybe it was the hunger, but I quickly ran out of breath. The girl seemed to be having trouble breathing too, so I slowed down and turned to face her. I think this is a good place to stop. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again for episode 2, maybe.